As a matter of national security, I've signed this omnibus budget bill. There are a lot of things that I'm unhappy about in this bill. There are a lot of things that we shouldn't have had in this bill, but we were, in a sense, forced. If we want to build our military, we were forced to have. But I say to Congress, I will never sign another bill like this again. I'm not going to do it again.
That was the president on Friday, defending his decision to sign the omnibus bill, even though he looked quite conflicted about it. We're going to bring in Mike Huckabee, former governor of Arkansas, Fox News contributor, and former GOP presidential candidate. Governor, what say you about this omnibus bill?
I call it the Omna BS bill, and I was very disappointed in it. I feel like that the GOP essentially betrayed the voters who gave them the majority, and I'm wondering, for what purpose did we put you in the majority? And I hear the argument, oh, we got to have 60 votes. No, what you have to have is an extraordinary sense of strength when you go into the negotiating room and you put some things on the table and say, on these things we will not give. One of them would be the defunding of Planned Parenthood, which is a very, just incredibly important thing for those of us who have fought to put pro-life people in office. And they betrayed us by continuing to give $500 million to an organization that slaughters unborn children and sells the body parts. This is an outrage to every person who is pro-life in this country. I was briefly encouraged when the president said he would veto or considering a veto of the bill, and deeply disappointed when it got signed. I understand. I'm happy about the military funding. Delighted by that. But the Republicans should have said, we're going to do this because we both should agree, Democrats and Republicans, that we fund the military and give them what they need. But we're not going to fund the slaughter of unborn children, and that's not going to be compromised.
So what do you do next time? As you heard the president said, this is the last time I'm going to sign something like this. He hasn't been in politics, as you know, so I think he's continued to be surprised at how swampy the swamp actually is and how complicated it is to get anything meaningful done. So next time this comes around and you've got about 24 hours to read an over 2,000-page bill, if you're President Trump, how do you handle this differently? What do you do?
Well, one of the reasons that he's a better negotiator in these things than the Republicans who are in leadership are is because they don't know what he's going to do. He doesn't give away all of his cards. He doesn't hold them out and say, y'all see what I have, let's play the game now. And that's what they do. There are things that the Democrats know the Republicans will cave on. They know that they'll give a good lip service to things like the life issue, but they're not really that serious about it because they never have been. And so they also promised they would never pass a bill they hadn't read. And it would have taken 131.7 pages a day to read that, huh?
I said, poll a Nancy Pelosi. They said they would never do that, but here we are.
Exactly. So Rand Paul got it right. Republicans run as conservatives when they are in the minority, but then they govern as Democrats when they get elected.
Governor, what do you think about these big March for Our Lives rallies yesterday? I mean, on one hand, obviously we have a First Amendment in this country. It's great that young people are activating, getting active. They want to speak out. There are people, not just in Parkland, but in a lot of our communities, as you know, all across this country who have experienced horrible tragedy. But what comes next?
Well, I salute these students for their passion and their energy and for their interest in helping to shape public policy. But I would say this to them. Emotion is a terrible substitute for truth. It is a terrible substitute for facts. And they've been used by believing that if they just ban a certain type of firearm, that things are going to be better. Here's the facts. 5 times more people are killed in America by knives, by murder, than they are by rifles. It's also true that over 86% of the 20,000 police chiefs and sheriffs in America do not support repealing concealed carry, but rather support it. And they don't support more gun control methods. If that were the case, they would be the first ones to say, we've got to get rid of certain weapons. And another fact that you just don't hear very often is that America has more guns than any other country on earth, 300 million. Gun ownership actually increased in between the years of 1993 and 2003, but gun violence, murder by guns, went down by half during that period of time.
What's the answer,
No one
Governor?
says those things. Well, the answer is, for one thing, all these network anchors who are shedding crocodile tears about how they want gun control, why don't they control their mouths? Here's what I would suggest. Quit giving infamy to these guys who commit the murders. Never mention their name. Never put their faces on the screen. Never make them famous.
Yeah.
Don't give these animals what they're desperately looking for, some attention that they never got from the crib to the moment that they either got shot or went to jail. That's one thing that we could do, and we never hear that.
Truth over emotion. We don't hear that in a lot of other channels, so we're hearing it this morning from Governor Huckabee. Thanks for coming in, buddy.
Yeah. Very well. I hope they also thanked the cops that were armed protecting their protest as well. That would have been nice. I don't know if they understand that irony. Governor, thank you very much.
So my next guest says that he was not invited to speak at this weekend's rally because he has a different viewpoint than the organizers. Kyle Kashuv is also a survivor of the Parkland massacre. He does not believe that more gun control is the answer here. He wants his opinion to be heard. Kyle, good to see you tonight.
Thank you for having me.
You know, it's when you think about all of the different places that failed, you know, starting with Sheriff Steve Israel, with the FBI, with the local police who had been to this house 29 times. I didn't hear any of that this weekend during these very forceful demonstrations.
Well, look, I mean, the issue is it's not gun control won't solve this issue. We've seen that we have to hold our government accountable. We have to. The only reason, the main reason why school shootings continuously happen is that our government is not doing its job. And it's clear that when the government does do its job, these shootings don't occur.
What about Marco Rubio? I know that you've spoken with him about this. You know, your thoughts on why he has become the singular punching bag in many ways for these protesters?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you. I think it mainly stems from ignorance of the situation and ignorance of who Marco Rubio is. I mean, we've seen from the marches, and we've seen that none of these protesters all they're doing is they're getting softball interviews. No one's truly challenging them on their viewpoints or what they're saying. And I mean, we've seen that throughout the marches, and we've seen throughout all the interviews that they're in their own ecosystem of the same viewpoint. And the only reason we can truly gain a consensus is through disagreement. And I don't know why Marco Rubio is the point of hatred here. He's been providing bipartisan solutions to this. Even before the shooting occurred, he had proposed legislation.
Do you think that Sheriff Israel and, you know, Scott Peterson, who stood down outside the building, you know, does he sort of register at all? Does any of that register on the part of the protesters who are the most vocal in this?
You know, I didn't see a single sign that said screw the sheriff or screw the Broward Sheriff's Office. I did not see a single sign. We need to represent, and we need to make sure that the government is held accountable. And when they fail, we have to make sure that they are held accountable. We cannot allow the government to continuously fail and not enforce what it's supposed to do. We have to hold our government accountable. And it pains me to see that all the hatred is deflected towards Marco Rubio and not to true authoritative figures such as the FBI and Sheriff Scott Israel and the Sheriff's Office and the cowards of Broward who did not do their job. They have to be the ones getting the blame, and they need to be the ones blasted across every single media outlet as those who need to be getting all the blame for this.
Well said. Kyle, thank you. Thanks again for coming back on the show. Good to see you.